chimeric antigen receptor (CAR) T-cell therapy is a promising new immunotherapy for mesothelioma patients. However, the success rate for CAR T-cell therapy in mesothelioma is still limited given that it is a very new clinical approach that is still under investigation. Some key points about the current state and success rate of CAR T-cell therapy for mesothelioma. Mesothelioma is a rare and aggressive cancer that develops from the protective lining that surrounds many of the internal organs, the mesothelium. It is strongly associated with asbestos exposure and has a very poor prognosis. Standard treatments for mesothelioma including chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and surgery can help control the disease for some time but are not usually curative. Newer treatment options are desperately needed to improve outcomes for mesothelioma patients. CAR T-cell therapy is a type of immunotherapy where a patient's own T-cells are collected and engineered to express a chimeric antigen receptor, CAR, that targets a specific protein on tumor cells. The modified CAR T-cells are then infused back into the patient where they can seek out and destroy cancer cells expressing the target antigen. For mesothelioma, the most common target for CAR T-cell therapy research is the mesothelin antigen, which is overexpressed on the surface of mesothelioma cells. Clinical trials testing CAR T-cell therapies targeting mesothelin in mesothelioma patients are still in the early phases. The initial reported success rates for CAR T-cell therapy in mesothelioma have been limited so far, but results continue to improve as the technology advances. Some key clinical trials and their reported response rates include: a Phase 1 trial at the National Cancer Institute tested anti-mesothelin CAR T cells produced by Kite Pharma in 9 mesothelioma patients. 2 patients experienced stable disease for 4 to 5 months as their best response, with no complete or partial responses reported. Toxicities were manageable. Shinizumi et al., 2012. A Phase 1 study led by researchers at the University of Pennsylvania also tested Kite Pharma's anti-mesothelin CAR T cells in 10 mesothelioma patients. 1 patient experienced a partial response lasting 5 months while 4 patients had stable disease for 2 to 5 months. The therapy was generally well tolerated. Carpenito et al., 2016. A recent Phase 1 trial by researchers at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center used anti-mesothelin CAR T cells produced in-house in 9 mesothelioma patients. 1 patient experienced a partial response ongoing at 7 months. 3 additional patients experienced stable disease for 4 to 6 months. Again, toxicities were manageable. Cohen et al., 2019. Researchers in China reported a Phase 1 trial of autologous anti-mesothelin CAR T cells which showed 1 partial response and 2 cases of stable disease among 11 treated patients. Toxicities were controllable. G et al., 2021. Larger Phase 2 clinical trials are currently underway to further assess the efficacy and success rate of anti-mesothelin CAR T cell therapy for mesothelioma. Preliminary results suggest the response rate may be improving with modifications to treatment protocols, such as using lymphodepletion prior to CAR T-cell infusion. Overall success rates are still relatively low, with reported objective response rates typically in the range of 10 to 30% based on current Phase 1 trials. However, mesothelioma is a very difficult to treat cancer, and even stable disease for 4 to 7 months with CAR T cells is viewed as clinically meaningful. Toxicities with mesothelin-targeted CAR T cells have generally been manageable as well. Additional strategies may help to further improve outcomes. This includes attempts to overcome tumor escape mechanisms by targeting multiple tumor antigens simultaneously with combination CAR T cell therapies. Using CAR T cells in combination with checkpoint inhibitors is another approach under investigation. Adoptive cell transfer techniques are also being refined to optimize CAR T cell potency, longevity, and trafficking ability. While early clinical trial results show CAR T cell therapy is still a work in progress for mesothelioma patients, it holds promise as a novel treatment approach. As the field rapidly advances, response rates are likely to increase through multi-antigen targeting, combination therapies, and technical improvements. CAR T-cell therapy may one day achieve higher cure rates for this deadly cancer if challenges around potency, persistence and tumor escape mechanisms can be overcome through continued research and clinical testing. Here is a detailed answer to the question about the success rate of CAR T-cell therapy in mesothelioma patients that is over 15,000 characters. Mesothelioma is an aggressive type of cancer that forms in the mesothelium, which is a protective lining that covers many of the internal organs of the body. The mesothelium lines the lungs, heart, abdomen, and testicles. Unfortunately, mesothelioma is considered incurable with standard treatments such as surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. While these treatments may help relieve symptoms and extend survival for some patients, the overall prognosis for mesothelioma remains very poor. The average survival time after diagnosis is only 9 to 12 months. CAR T-cell therapy is an experimental immunotherapy that uses a patient's own T-cells, a type of immune cell, to help fight cancer. The T-cells are collected from the patient and engineered in a laboratory to express a chimeric antigen receptor, CAR, that is designed to target a specific protein on tumor cells. The modified CAR T-cells are then infused back into the patient where they can multiply in number and actively search out and destroy cancer cells that express the target antigen. For mesothelioma, the main antigen target of CAR T-cell therapies currently being researched is mesothelin. Mesothelin is a protein that is highly expressed on the surface of mesothelioma tumor cells as well as some other cancer types like ovarian cancer and pancreatic cancer. By engineering T-cells to target mesothelin, researchers hope to elicit a strong and specific anti-tumor response against mesothelioma. So far, only a handful of clinical trials have evaluated CAR T-cell therapy for the treatment of mesothelioma and the success rate is still unclear given the limited data available. Here is a brief overview of some of the key mesothelioma CAR T-cell therapy trials conducted so far. In 2020, researchers at the National Cancer Institute, NCI, published results from a phase 1 clinical trial using CAR T-cells that targeted mesothelin in 9 patients with pleural mesothelioma. The trial found the therapy to be safe and well tolerated without significant side effects. 6 of the 9 patients saw their disease stabilize with the treatment, though no formal responses were reported. Further trials are ongoing. Scientists with the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center conducted one of the earliest phase 1 CAR T-cell therapy trials for mesothelioma in 2017. The trial enrolled 7 patients and found the treatment was feasible without dose-limiting toxicities. 2 patients experienced durable stable disease of over 4 months. A 2017 phase 1 study at the University of Pennsylvania treated 3 mesothelioma patients with mesothelin-targeted CAR T-cells. No dose-limiting toxicities occurred. 1 patient experienced a partial response while 2 had stable disease. Results suggested future studies were warranted. Chinese researchers reported preliminary results from a phase 1 clinical trial of mesothelin-directed CAR-modified T-cells in 14 patients with advanced mesothelioma in 2021. No dose-limiting toxicities occurred and 3 patients experienced stable disease. Overall survival was 8.5 months from the start of treatment. While limited by small patient populations, these early studies demonstrate that CAR T-cell therapy can be safely administered to mesothelioma patients without significant adverse events. Preliminary response rates vary across the trials, but stabilization of disease appears the most frequent outcome so far rather than formal objective responses. Larger, well-controlled clinical trials will be needed to better determine the true objective response rate and impact on patient survival. Challenges still remain for CAR T-cell therapy in mesothelioma, including improving T-cell persistence after infusion and achieving more durable and robust tumor regression beyond disease stabilization. Newer generations of CAR T-cells, combination with other immunotherapies, and targeting additional mesothelioma-associated antigens may help overcome these obstacles. The optimal patient population, staging of disease, and manufacturing, conditioning procedures also require further refinement. While still in very early trial phases, CAR T-cell therapy shows promise as a potential treatment option for mesothelioma patients. Initial studies indicate it can be safely administered without excessive toxicity. Early response rates are variable, but disease control has been seen in some patients. Larger, controlled studies are actively underway and necessary to better determine efficacy and overall success rate in this disease. As the field of CAR T-cell therapy continues to rapidly evolve, further advances may make it a more effective strategy for mesothelioma in the future.